Good day, everyone. We are the Group 4, and our report is all about the principle of restorative justice. By the way, I'm Aznal K. Ocusan, and this is my group members, Ali Kim L. Salar and Vanessa D. Diano. Now, let's talk about the principle of restorative justice. The principle of restorative justice are summarized as follows. Number 1, justice requires that we work to restore those who have been injured. Injured classified as the victim of the said harm. So, the meaning of this is we work to restore those relationship that has been broken inside of the community. Number 2, those most directly involved and affected by crime should have the opportunity to participate fully in the response of they wish. The victim, the offender, as well as the community have the opportunity to participate in this kind of manner to them to have a responsible interaction with each other, and as well as to do the thing that they will agree together. Number 3 is the government role is to preserve a just public order and the community to build and maintain a just peace. Meaning to say, if the government has the privilege to pertain the order in just public order, which means the fairness. The meaning of just here is the justice or the fairness of the order, and the community to build and maintain a just peace. The community is said to maintain a peace community. So everything in this restorative justice will have a peaceful and meaningful way of agreement. Practices and programs reflecting restorative purposes will respond to crime. Number 1, identifying and taking steps to repair harm. So they will analyzing or preparing a step-by-step process to repair the harm. Number 2 is involving all stakeholder. Stakeholder mean those affected of the said offense, like the offender, the community, and the victim, as well as those people who will assist to arrange this kind of conflict. And number 3 is transforming the traditional relationship between communities and their governments in responding to crime. Transforming the traditional relationship between the communities and the government in responding to a crime. So, binasa ko lang ulit. Now, let's proceed to next slide. Restorative justice core values. Restorative justice is based on the balanced focus on the offender, victim, and community. The values according to each participants are A. The offender apology or shaming and reintegration. B. The victim, the harm, and opportunity for forgiveness. And C. The community relationship, outcomes, and the measurement to the restorative justice program based on each values. R. So this is the explanation. The offender must apology or reintegrate. Either apology, either oral or written, recognizing responsibility and not seeing oneself as a victim, and realizing and acknowledging the harm suffered by the victim. He must apologize whether it's verbal or written order, and he must apologize by the heart, and dapat ito ay kapani-paniwala, and he recognizing that he is not the victim of this conflict, and also it may be she realizing and acknowledging the harm. So he must acknowledge the harm that she done for the victim, like ma-realize niya na yung mga ginagawa niya is mali. He will realize that what he has done is wrong. Reintegration is earning his or her place back in the community, particularly through the action plan developed under the healing the harm process. So the offender must earning his place back in the said community and develop by the process of the healing the harm process. So the offender here must go through seminar process, mga seminar para siya ay ma-integrate or mabago. So that is some step to reintegrate the offender. Other explanation is about the victim. The victim has the harm and the opportunity to forgiveness. So harm is assessing what harm was done and developing a case plan to repair the harm and creating an action plan for those responsible for healing and repairing the harm. So the victim should go to some consultant so he can be healed for those harm that's what done and have a consultation like for repair to the damage that if it is traumatizing, so he can go to therapy and some agencies that can help her or him to heal those said harm. Forgiveness. The opportunity is extended for the victim to accept an apology from the offender and to extend forgiveness. So, from the word forgiveness, the victim has the opportunity to give the victim the if he or she accept the apology that the offender create to them to give to them. So, the victim is has the opportunity to give the forgiveness for those offender that create damage to them, that do damage to the victim. The community serve as the relationship, healing broken relationship and creating new relationship for those two, the victim and the offender. The community here serve as the fixing those broken relationship between two. For example, the two is neighbors, like there's good neighbors but the conflict is has been done and the community is serve as giving so to restore some relationship that will serve as peace or will serve as a win-win situation for those two. Now let's proceed for key values of the restorative program. So number one, we have encounter, create opportunities for victims, offenders, and community members who wants to meet to discuss the crime and its up. It create opportunity to meet. It create opportunities for them to have the meeting and discuss those crime that has been done. So the elements of an encounter are meeting. So they conduct meeting, narrative. Narrative is for the narration of those conflict emotion, so they can go on for the emotion of the victim and as well as the emotion of the offenders, and understanding the uh, the said community will understand, or the said mediator will understand this their conflict and agreement. So after on all of their meeting have the agreement and so on. Number two is amends. Expect offenders to take a step to repair the harm they have caused. So the offender here must take step for him to repair the damage that he has done. And the four elements of amends is make apology, change behavior, restitution, and generosity. So the the offender here must apologize, change his behavior, restitution. Restitution is to return, like restore the relationship, and generosity. He must be kind to all people surrounding him. Number three is reintegration, seeks to restore victims and offenders as a whole contributing members of society. It seeks the it is the restorement of the relationship between the two, the victim and the offenders, and it might contribute a little in the society. The elements of reintegration are acknowledging human dignity and worth. So they acknowledge the human dignity and worth of each other and providing material assistance, which means this is like for seminar purposes and offering moral spiritual direction. And those two have the spiritual relationship for them to have a direction in life. Number four is inclusion. Provide opportunities for parties with a stake in a specific crime to participate in its resolution. So the inclusion is providing opportunities for parties to a specific crime and participate for their resolution. The ingredients of inclusion are invitation. So each of everyone must invite the two or the community or those people who are interested of this kind of resolution. Acknowledgement that the person invited has unique interest in recognition that he or she might want to try alternative approaches. So this is the kind of seminars that will conduct unique interest and recognition for alternative approaches like restoring justice. Now let's proceed to the next reporter.
My name is Salar and this is my report. Restorative justice, fundamental principle. First, justice requires that we work to restore those who have been injured, victims, communities, and even offenders. So, the vast majority of victims are happy with the process of with this process, and uh, and this process is not about passing the judgment. So this is not about unta madaog na ko ni na kaso or something like that. But it's about repairing the harm that has been done, and with a unique process which allows those taking part to regain sense of control during the line under whatever has happened, so they can look to the future and move on with their lives. Then second, those most directly involved and affected by crime, victims, offenders, and community should have the opportunity to participate fully in the response if they wish. So restorative justice is completely optional, and it can only happen if both parties agree to take part, and any party can stop the process at any time if they are not comfortable with it or they just need a break. Then three, while the government is responsible for preserving a just public order, the community's role is establishing and maintaining a just peace must be given significance. And the community's role is so important here because the role of the community here is to create the conditions most favorable to the restoration of both offender and victims. And the best part of it is uh, all those involved get a chance to put a human face on the crime, so they get a chance to begin a process of healing, so they become empowered again. So the community's role is very important, so that's why they need to be given significance. The way restorative justice works, the main process takes place at a restorative justice conference chaired by a facilitator, to which victims and offenders and appropriate support people are invited. To be involved in any useful way, the offender must acknowledge any responsibility for the crime committed and express their honest regret. And then, if you are the offender, you must acknowledge any responsibility of the crime committed, and you should express or show to them that you have regretted so much the crime that you have committed. And the full implication of the offense need to be spelled out and confronted. The offender needs also to face the consequences of the offending and where possible make restitution. So what does restitution means? It, it means returning to the proper owner, property, or the monetary value of loss. Example of restitution is example a shoplifter who is ordered to repay a store owner for the cost of a stolen item. So pasabot, the offender ordered to return or restore something to the victim. Next is, in a controlled, facilitated process, the offenders meet the victims at the RGC and have to face up to what they have done. They hear the victim's anger and anxiety, and the victims hear the offender's explanation. So, of course, if the victim had given a chance to express their feelings, the offenders should also be given a chance to explain their side, and the process should be held at the Restorative Justice Conference, or the RGC. And it would be silly to claim that all the damages can be repaired immediately. Sometimes it can never be. Certainly, in the murder and rape cases, it can. But at least those involved get a chance to put a human face on the crime and begin the process of healing. So they become empowered again. The offenders get to take responsibility for their criminal behavior. There is some crimes that it can't be repaired immediately. Naiusahay dili jud maayos, especially those two crimes kanang murder and rape, because it obviously a very big of a deal. And then next, herewith are some of the models of RGC. Victims Offender Mediation Program. First appeared in the 1970s in Canada. It offers victims and offenders the opportunity to meet together with the assistance of a trained mediator to talk about the crime and to agree on steps toward justice. The mediator imposes no specific outcome. The goal is to empower participants, promote dialogue, and encourage mutual problem solving. The three main objectives of BOM are to identify the injustice, make things right, and to consider future actions. So, dili parehas sa proseso sa korte, these programs aim to empower the participants na resolve ang ilang mga problema on their own. And unlike arbitration, na kung asa ginadungog sa third party ang both sides sa judgment, ang kaning proseso sa VOM ang good kay nagarely ni siya both sa victim o offender na sabay nila i-resolve ang disagreement or ang argument. Next is conferencing. Family group conferencing initiated by legislation in 1989 in New Zealand and was adopted and significantly changed in Australia is now being used in the US, Europe, and other parts of the world. It was adopted from the Wano Conference practiced by the Maori people. The group discusses what should be done to repair injuries caused by crime. The facilitator allows the group to develop its own plans without offering any of his or her own opinion and suggestion. So, the facilitator guides and assists the groups. So, ganasiguro niya nga ang mga proseso nagpabilin na safe for the involved people o dili ni maabot sa mga irrelevant issues. Then the conference participants includes dili lang ang mga biktima o ang offender, kundi apil pod ilang mga family o ang mga supportive groups nila o katong mga police officer na ni aresto nila o katong mga justice representatives pod. That's all.
Circle of Community. Circle are facilitate community meeting attended by offenders, victims, their friends, and families interested member of community meetings attended by representative of justice system. The facilitator is a community member called a keeper, whose role is primarily to keep the process orderly and Dikali to summarize for the benefit of the. So, the circle of the community is nagpatawag sila ng meetings para pag-usapan nila kung paano nila gawin or hanapin yung mga nagkakasala sa komunidad. Ito yung isa ka rason nga nung magpatawag sila ng meeting para mapadali ang paghahanap ng hustisya sa mga taong nabiktima ng gumagawa ng krimen. Next is, in fact panels, a victim offenders panels, is made up of the group of victims and group of offenders who are linked by a common kind of crime, although they are not each other victim of offenders. The purpose of the meeting is to help the victim find resolution and to expose offenders to damage caused to other by the crime, thereby producing a change in the offender's attitudes and behaviors. BOPs are more varied in form against drunk fellowship bring groups of 5 to 6 victims into the prison similar number of prisoners. They discuss issues including responsibility, confession, repentance, forgiveness, restitution, and reconciliation. So dito, maintindihan natin sa first paragraph, sinasabi nila na yung mga gumagawa ng krimen is nagrupo sila para mangbiktima ng mga tao sa komunidad. So, mao ni ang purpose sa second paragraph, mao daw ni ang purpose nga nung nagpatawag sila meeting para tabangan ang mga biktima to find the hustisya. And the last is nagmeeting po sila for the katong mga biktima kung madakpan nila is dalon nila dito sa prison. And then pag abot dito is may gagawin yung mga tao na nasa loob ng prison, which is yung fellowship. Yung tinatawag natin na na kung papaano baguhin yung tao sa loob ng kulungan. Because nakalagay dito is may repentance, forgiveness, and of course, the restitution and reconciliation. Next is analogy. So, anong analogy? So, ngayon pag-usapan natin. Restorative justice options are not easy but they are life-giving and should be at the heart of our response to crime. An essential part of the message of any God-fearing person is the concept of the forgiveness, mercy, and healing leading to the reconciliation. Practice entails the changing of people's hearts from anger, bitterness, hurt, and resentment to hearts of compassion, healings, and mercy. Even the worst of offenders remain children of God, redeemed with the blood of Christ. Dito maintindihan natin, alam ninyo, mahirap talaga magpatawad. Kasi, for example, may isa kang nabiktima na family. Siyempre, sa group of one family, siyempre, yung mga yung mga biktima doon is yung pamilya is hindi ka talaga magpapatawad. Pero sinabi dito is even the God-fearings to a person or tao nga nagalagad sa Ginoo is nangayo siya og forgiveness, mercy, healings para sa kaniyang mga kasalanan. Kaya ganon yung nangyari dito. Kung dito tayo sa mundo is kung nagkakasala yung tao or for example nakapatay siya is doon pinasok siya sa prison. So pagdating doon is ang tao talaga is may pagbabago. Kasi alam mo yung mga taong nakapasok doon sa prison is nagsisisi talaga sila. Like Christ is magkakasala tayo is humingi tayo ng tawad sa Kanya para ma-forgive yung mga kasalanan natin, to redeem with the blood of Christ. Next is personal view. It has been the call ever since philosophy and logic invalid the civilization of man. The principle of righteousness is interpreted based on the advantage of one over the other. Those human laws are promulgated without abuse objective of putting matters in the right perspective. But the more men cap up with the laws, the value diminishes. Man judges on the outside those which the complete reverence of true righteousness. Dito, maintindihan natin. The words personal view. So, maintindihan natin kung ano ang ibig sabihin dito, di ba? Sinabi dito, the principles of righteousness is interpreted based on the advantage of one over those human laws. That there is no one who is righteous, no one who is wise, who worship God. They have all gone wrong. No one does what is right, no even one their words are full, not deadly resent, weekend lies roll off their tongue, and dangerous, dirty like snake poisons from their lips. Their speech is filled with bitter curse. So dito, ang ibig sabihin, bisag walay isa ka tao nga gitawag nga righteous except God. Kasi sinasabi dito, paano maging righteous yung tao? For example, nagsisimba ka, simba ka araw-araw, ganun. Pero pagdating mo doon sa labas is yung nasa bunganga mo is yung mga makasalanang salita. Snake poison from their lips. Speech is filled with bitter curse. O dito, maintindihan natin, di ba? So, next is now, is there a hope for the implementation of restoration justice? Yes, it's because God said, I have loved you with everlasting love. I have drawn you with loving kindness. So, dito lang tayo magtatapos. Thank you for listening and watching. By the way, I'm Vanessa Diano, the Group 4 report.